Alright, so today I'd like to talk a little bit about the idea of meals versus snacking and how to combine the two in order to make an optimal eating schedule for best possible health and also for in order to function well in society. So first of all, I'd just like to say that, I've made a video about this in the past. I'll put the link in the description. Humans, ideally, we should be eating meals. When you're looking at animals that graze, like cows and horses that just keep eating grass all day, that's not really the natural way of an anthropoid ape like humans, like chimpanzees. When we're hungry and we come upon a tree in the nature, if you imagine we were out in the wild and we were hungry and we came upon a fig tree, we would just eat until we're satisfied. We wouldn't really just have 2 figs and then go look for another tree. We'd likely just eat until we're satisfied, and then we'll be satiated, and we wouldn't really think about food for a little while until we got hungry again, and then we'll repeat the process. And this is also best for our digestion. I know there's a lot of opposing opinions. Some people say that you should be grazing. Some people say, like me, that you should be eating meals. I think one of the arguments for eating meals is that it's sort of easier to gauge how much to eat. Your body will sort of be more in touch with its needs. And if we just keep eating all day, a little bit, I've found in my experience anyway, that it's sort of, I never get really hungry and I never get really satiated. And that's something I hate, because I really feel like I'm missing out then. I really enjoy the process of feeling super hungry, ready to eat, and just like, oh yeah, the food tastes so good, so satisfying, and then getting, really full and really satisfied and being like, perfection, I'm good, Whereas if I'm just snacking all day, I'll never feel that hunger coming on, and I'll never feel that full satiation either, because I'm never actually eating a full meal. So that's one of the reasons. I think also the digestive system does better with large bulks of food, because basically when you eat something, that you start the process of peristalsis, which is moving the food down through the intestinal tract. The stomach starts churning and etc. And that's stimulated best by a large volume of food. When you're just having small volumes trickle in all the time, the digestive system sort of gets into a sort of slow grind almost, and it's not as efficient as when it's resting. And then their large bulk of food comes in and it's like, okay, wow, a large volume of food, and starts really working, moving that down, and then it's resting again. That's a better way to do it. Just like with exercise, you wouldn't really exercise on a very low intensity all day long. You're ready for exercise, you do it. You exercise for half an hour, 2 hours, even 3 hours. Then you're done for the day, or maybe for the next 6 hours you rest a little bit. Things in life, it seems it's best to do things in meals, in sections like that. You sit down, you eat, you're done. You sit down, you work for a few hours, you're done. Rather than spreading it out and sort of being just... So that's some of the arguments anyway for eating meals rather than snacking. So without getting into more of the discussion of whether or not we should graze or eat meals, I'd like to just sort of share with you how I approach the idea of including snacks in my life still. Because I really do find that snacking is an excellent way to moderate my meals. Let me explain. I wake up in the morning. I'm not hungry immediately, so it usually takes me about an hour before I'm sort of ready for breakfast. I eat breakfast, and here's the thing. I'm eating bananas for breakfast, and I've found that I personally really enjoy having 3 meals a day. Like 2 meals a day, I like eating, okay? I like to eat often. I like to have the meals break up my day. Breakfast is sort of marking the beginning of my day. Dinner sort of marking the end of my day. After dinner, I'm just resting. And lunch is a sort of midday, separates the first half of the day with the second half, you know what I mean? So I like that. So since I'm eating bananas for breakfast, if I were to just sit down and eat as many bananas as I wanted, literally until I was satisfied, I'd likely end up eating just 2 meals that day, because I'd likely eat quite a lot of bananas, right? So rather than doing that, I sort of know approximately how many bananas I need to eat in order to hold me until lunch. And if I want more bananas, I'll eat more bananas, no problem. I follow my hunger, but to some degree I also moderate it. I also actually decide that I'm gonna have 10 bananas for breakfast. I won't have 15, even though I could eat 15 if I was just gonna go ahead and eat as much as I feel like. I'm actually eating more like probably 8, 9, 10. I have an idea, calorically speaking, in my mind of how many bananas is necessary for me to be kept until lunch, and I know that number approximately. As I approach lunch, I might get hungry earlier than I was planning, because you never know how much calories the body needs, etc. So it's difficult to sort of estimate that perfectly. So the body just says, hey, I need more calories, I'm hungry, and maybe I'm going out for a run before lunch. Well, in that situation, that's where the snack comes in. In that situation, I will, if I'm approaching, if it's like still an hour until I'd like to have lunch, I could just have lunch earlier, but then again, I like to sort of have my day quite scheduled, quite orderly. And because I like to have my lunch, around 2 o'clock or even 1:30, if it's 12 o'clock and I'm starting to feel hungry, rather than having the lunch early, I will have a snack that will keep me until lunch. So, maybe I'll have a couple of hundred calories, a little snack of dried figs or dates, or maybe I'll even have a mango if I have some mangoes around, or that's rare, but you know what I mean. And that's also good for training. If I'm heading out for a run and I'm just slightly hungry, I'll have a little bit of dried fruit just to get that blood sugar up and sort of feel ready for the run, and then that'll keep me until I come home from the run again. At which point I will have my lunch, and again, I'm not eating until I'm completely satisfied. I'm eating as much as I know that will satisfy me right there and then, more or less, and keep me until dinner, which is going to happen probably around 5:30-ish for me this time. Nowadays, it's always different, but nowadays it's around 5:30. And so I'll eat a certain amount of bananas again. Maybe not until complete satiation, but I'm satiated, I'm happy about it. And then as we approach dinner, same thing might happen again. I might feel again that I'm getting hungry and it's not dinner yet, and I don't want to sort of eat dinner early. I want to eat dinner with Mads. We sit down, we have it's a ceremony, sitting down and having a meal together. That's the one meal of the day that we share, unless we happen to be together during lunch as well. That happens sometimes. But dinner meal is a very important part of the day for me and for a lot of people, and culturally we have a lot of attachments to this dinner meal, right? So it's an important part of the day, and I'd like it to happen the way it should. So I won't just suddenly eat lots of food an hour before dinner. What I'll do is I'll have a snack again. I'll just snack on some dried dates or figs or fresh figs or fresh dates if I have that around. I'll just have a couple of hundred calories, something that I know will keep me for that next hour or so. And the truth is, the same happens after dinner, late in the evening, maybe an hour before I go to bed or so. I might feel like, dinner was good, but I'm still a little bit hungry. If that happens, then I'll just have another little snack. So overall for the day, I typically end up having 3 meals, which is where I get, the bulk of my calories. But I also have 2, sometimes 3 snacks. Usually just 2 snacks at different points during the day, depending on how hungry I was, or how the dinner or lunch or breakfast kept me until the next meal, and how active I am, and pre-workout snack. If I'm in a workout and I'm just like, I'm feeling the need for some sugar, I'm feeling the need for some carbohydrates while I'm working out, but it's still, I still have half an hour left of my workout, something like that, I'll go down in the wardrobe, open up the cabinet and get a banana or get a date or something like that, because you don't want to really go low on blood sugar. You don't want to be, pushing yourself. Well, you can, but there's no need to sort of go through that period of being hungry and not having enough calories. So I like to just promote calorie sufficiency at all times. If you're at all interested in food, eat. Eat until you're satisfied, But if you're like me and you enjoy that process of having an orderly system, if you will, of breakfast, lunch, dinner at certain times of the day, fitting it, maybe you're working and you have a specific lunch break, it's always at the same time, you want your lunch to happen during that time, well, then you have to be pretty good at estimating how many calories you'll need for breakfast to keep you until lunch. And if that doesn't work out, because that happens all the time, we're not able always to calculate how many calories we need. It's not an exact science like that. In that situation, the snack is very, very useful. I recommend dried fruit, dried figs, super nutritious, delicious. Dried fig is probably my favorite snack. Make sure though, when you are snacking, that you rinse your mouth afterwards, especially if you're eating dried fruit. That's all. I guess it's the kind of hybrid of the grazing and the meal plan, where I do a little bit of both. I'm not eating throughout the day, but then again, I'm not having 2 large meals either, which would probably happen, you know, if I was eating really calorie dense like bananas. Let's say I was only eating bananas for a day, and I was just gonna eat when I'm hungry. I'm just gonna eat as much as I feel like. I'll probably end up eating, you know, I don't know, 1,500 calories or so for each meal, which would leave me at 3,000 calories for the day. Probably I'll end up eating 2 meals only then. But because I prefer 3 meals, I sort of cut it down a little bit. I have a sort of, I know a lot about how many calories is in the food, how much I'm probably gonna need, and I just sort of estimate how much I'm going to have for breakfast, how much I'm going to have for lunch, and how much I'm going to have for dinner. And then that snacking is almost like the filler, the caloric top-up to make sure that I'm reaching my caloric need. Because I guess that's just at the end here, this is important. When we're deciding beforehand how much to eat, like if we're taking bananas and putting it in a blender to make a smoothie, we have to decide before we make the smoothie how much we're going to eat, right? If we're making cooked sweet potatoes, we have to decide before we cook them how much sweet potatoes am I going to have, right? And that's not the same as when we have access to, like, let's say we just have an abundance of mangoes and papayas lying around. We could just, when we're hungry, we'll just eat mangoes until we're satisfied and we'll stop. That's natural eating at its best. When we're making smoothies and we're making cooked stuff like I am right now, not entirely optimal, of course, we are venturing into a place where we are actually not allowing our bodies to judge when to stop eating and when to start eating. We're actually planning it by the clock a little bit and by how much food we're preparing. And that's okay as long as we introduce snacking into that picture. Because if we were to just eat what we planned every single time, we might end up eating too much, or we might end up eating too little. And so the best way to approach is then to make sure that each meal adds up to a little bit less than what we think we'll need, and then we'll use snacking to top up those extra calories, right? Because that way, if I know that, you know, I'll probably need about 3,000 calories today, if I make sure my breakfast, lunch, and dinner accounts to about 2,500 calories, I know that's not going to be enough. Then I'll just snack. I have an unlimited amount of dried figs. I'll just snack on those until I'm satisfied. So that's when the body comes in and says, hey, I need to eat more. And then you eat more until it says, I'm good, you know. So I find that to be a kind of good strategy, the best of both worlds, if you will. So I hope you learned something from this. Let me know in the comments what you do. Do you prefer snacking or do you prefer meals? Do you have a strategy similar to mine? Any ideas? I'd love to hear them. And of course, you know, you could always go to our website, sweetnaturalliving.com, where we have a free ebooklet on how to get started with the raw vegan diet. You can download that and they'll sign you up to our newsletter. It comes out every month. And also, of course, check out the Little Banana Book, which is my book about eating bananas and why they're so epic for anyone trying to do a fruit-based diet anywhere in the world. That's the plugs for the day. Thanks for watching. I enjoy making these videos for you. I hope you liked it. Give us a like if you really did. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's an epic day. It doesn't look so epic, but it's actually warm and I'm going to head out for a run. Really excited about it. Thanks for watching. Bye.